So this week we're going to be preparing for a test. We're not done with Unit 3. We actually call this a mid-test because it's in the middle of Unit 3. Unit 3 is a really big unit. And so we're going to be preparing for that test. And in class, I am going to be having kids working a lot on their own. And I won't necessarily be working it out with them. So I decided to make this video where I could work it out with you guys, and you'd be able to see me do stuff, because I know a lot of y'all are still struggling with this. Also, I know that y'all haven't gotten the calculator that I thought y'all were supposed to get by now. So as I work these out today, I'm going to be working these out with the Desmos calculator. And so hopefully that will help as well. Today we're going to be talking about parallel and perpendicular, and I am not going to go in depth on this part right here, but I'm going to kind of rush through some stuff. So I want you to see these lines A and D right here, and you can tell that they're parallel lines. And what I want you to see here is that going from dot to dot, the slope is up 1 over 1, 2, 3. So up 1 over 3. That would give a slope of 1 over 3. And then D is also up 1 over 3. And that's what makes them parallel, okay, is because they both have the same slope. And so that's going to be something you're going to hear us say a lot, is slopes that are parallel are always the same. Okay, then we're also going to be talking about perpendicular. Now, perpendicular isn't just two lines that intersect, but they have to intersect and form a right angle. So you see this little box right here? That means right angle. So let's take a look at the slope of this line. First off, this line is negative. It's going downhill. And then it's down 1, 2, 3 over 1. So it is a negative 3 over 1. Now, I know usually I wouldn't write it over 1 because it's just negative 3. But I need you to see the relationship between, and actually I'm not even sure if this is B. I don't know. I'm pretending like this is B right now. I don't know if it is or not. So I want you to see the relationship between B and A, or B and D, and it shows that they're perpendicular, okay? So notice that first off, these were positive and the perpendicular one was negative. And then this said 1 over 3, and this said 3 over 1. And so this is something that we call opposite reciprocal. Opposite meaning you got to change the sign, and reciprocal means to flip the fraction. And so, and you're going to get to see this quite a bit today, is anytime that it's perpendicular, it'll always be the opposite reciprocal of whatever the other line was, okay? And then the last thing is this right here. And this line isn't parallel or perpendicular. It's just a line that's crossing. Majority of lines actually fit this line right here, which I'm going to call C right now. And so if I look at it, it goes up 1, 2, 3 over 1. And it's not parallel because this is negative, this is positive. And it's not opposite reciprocal because it does flip, but they're not opposites. And so sometimes it's just an ordinary line that just intersects, and there's nothing special about it. So the reason why we showed you this is we want you to see that in order to be parallel or perpendicular, very specific things have to happen, okay? And if it's not these very specific things, then it's what we would call neither. It's just a regular line that's just, you know, intersecting, okay? All right. So I'm not going to worry about which lines are parallel, perpendicular. Oh, I had it backwards. It was C and B. I wasn't sure. Okay, so they're going to give us a slope, and they want us to, and I'm going to go kind of quickly through this so you can always pause if I'm going too fast. So they're going to give us a slope, and we're going to find the parallel and the perpendicular. Parallel is always the easiest. Parallel is always the same. So they gave us a slope. The parallel slope is going to be the exact same. The perpendicular one is the tricky one, okay? Because there's two things that have to happen, and the biggest mistake is people only want to do one thing. And it, you know, I would like to say it's always, this is the one thing they like to do, but it just is different every single time. But the key thing is that they only do one thing. To be perpendicular, it's got to be two things. So first off, it's got to change the signs. So if this is positive, my perpendicular's got to be negative. And then the second thing is you got to flip the fraction. So 2 over 3 would become 3 over 2. And that's the perpendicular slope. But you have to have both things. It's got to change the sign and flip the fraction. So -4, parallel slope would be -4. Now I do want to write this as a fraction, -4 over 1, because it'll make it easier when I have to do the perpendicular. Because the perpendicular, we're going to flip it. If you just leave it like this, it's kind of hard to see how we're going to flip it. If I write it as a fraction, and a whole number is always over 1. So first thing I'm going to do is change the sign. So if that's negative, then my perpendicular has to be positive. And then if I flip the fraction, it would be 1 over 4. And that would be the perpendicular slope. So parallel slopes are the same. Obviously, parallel slopes are the easy one. So when we talk about which one's easy and which one's hard, get the parallel slopes. Those are easy. And then the perpendicular slopes are the ones that are a little bit more difficult. Okay, this one right here, parallel slope is -1 over 4. Okay, so if we change the sign, it's a positive. And then if I flip it, it would become 4 over 1, which would just be 4. Okay, but 4 over 1 is also fine. All right, and then 2, so the parallel slope would be 2. And then if I make this 2 over 1, makes it a little bit easier to flip. So if I change the sign, it would become negative because it was positive here. And then I flip the fraction, it would be 1 over 2. Okay. So now all we're going to do is look at these and determine if they're parallel or perpendicular. Well, parallel and perpendicular only deals with slopes, okay? And so when y is by itself, which y is by itself on all these, then the slope is always the number in front of x. So you're going to look at the numbers in front of x only. You don't look at anything else, only the numbers in front of x. And then you're going to tell me if it's parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So here, the slopes are both 2. That means that they're the same. And if they're the same, then this is parallel. By the way, the symbol for parallel kind of looks like an 11. It's just 2 parallel lines. Okay, so I want to say, I can't remember if it was this worksheet or another one, but at the very top, it had this right here for parallel. All right, so now number 2. Okay, so I'm looking at these two. All right, so let's look at it. It's definitely not parallel, okay, because they're not the exact same. So are they perpendicular? Okay, well, they definitely flip. Okay, that's one thing. Did it do anything else? Because remember, to be perpendicular, it's got to do 2 things. And this is the tricky part. A lot of kids want to go so fast that they're like, oh, it flipped. It's perpendicular. This is not perpendicular because the signs are the same. And in order to be perpendicular, the signs have to be different. Okay, so you have to flip it and change the sign, and they just flipped it. And so if it's not parallel, it's not perpendicular, it's neither. And the thing I want you to remember is that neither is what happens the majority of the time, okay? Majority of the time, you just got 2 lines that intersect. There's nothing special about them. And so kids want to make it parallel perpendicular every single time, and that doesn't happen. All right, so let's take a look at this one. So here's my 2 slopes. Okay, well, the signs are different. That's one thing. Is this parallel? Nope, because they're different. Is this perpendicular? Nope, they've only done one thing. They didn't do the other thing. They didn't flip it. So how would you flip 3? Well, 3 is technically 3 over 1. So to flip it, it should have become 1 over 3. And so this right here is neither. All right, so let's take a look at this one. Okay, well, definitely not parallel because they're not the same. So now is it perpendicular? Well, the signs are different. One's positive, one's negative. So that's one thing. And then they flip the fraction. That's 2 things. All right, 2 things means that this will be perpendicular. And the symbol for perpendicular is this upside down T. Okay, this upside down capital T is the symbol for perpendicular. All right. So we're really just doing the same thing right here, just getting practice at it. So we want to determine if the slopes, so they've given you all the slopes here, are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Okay, so we have 2, and then we have a -1/2. Well, it's definitely not parallel. Okay, so is it perpendicular? Well, first off, the signs are different. That's one thing. Okay, so now, did they flip the fraction? All right, well, 2 would be 2/1. And if I flip it, it becomes 1/2. Yes, these are perpendicular. I'm just going to draw the upside down T there. All right, number 2 is 3 and -3. Okay, well, it's definitely not parallel because parallel slopes are the exact same and 3 and -3 are not the exact same. So is it perpendicular? Well, the signs are switched. That's one thing. But did they flip the fraction? Nope, didn't at all. So this is neither. Okay, so if they were going to flip the fraction, they would have made this 3/1. And to flip it would have made it 1/3. All right, so let's take a look at 3. Okay, well, first off, it's not parallel, definitely. And like I said, always take care of what you know. If it's not parallel, then at least make sure that you get rid of that. Okay. Now perpendicular is the tougher thing. So they definitely flip the fraction because 4/1, flip it would be 1/4. But both of these are negative, so they didn't change the sign. So this would be neither. Once again, I want you to see that neither is kind of happening a little bit more often. All right. And so, it's something that I don't want you to think that it's parallel perpendicular every single time. I get these kids that once we teach parallel perpendicular, they want to put parallel perpendicular on everything. Okay. All right. This one's tricky. Okay. 4/5 and 8/10. Well, it doesn't look like it has anything in common. Well, that's because this right here will reduce. And what I'm going to tell you is they usually do not do this. Okay. So this one's tricky. And normally they do not try to trick you like this. And so this right here reduces to 4/5. So this is how you'll always see it. They'll never, at least not in Algebra 1, try to trick you like they did on this question. They'll always put 4/5 and 4/5. So are these parallel? Yes, because they're the exact same. And so this is parallel. You just draw 2 lines that are parallel. It kind of looks like an 11, but you kind of make it a little bit longer than 11. So the lines are a little bit longer. All right, number 5. Okay, well, definitely not parallel because they're not the exact same. The signs are not the same, or I'm sorry, the signs are not different and they should be different. So this can't be perpendicular, even though they did flip it, the fraction. And so 5 became 1/5, but they didn't change the sign, so this is neither. I don't consider perpendicular to be easy because it's easy to mess up. I do consider parallel to be easy. And so if you're struggling with perpendicular, it's kind of confusing. Make sure you know parallel. Parallel slopes are the exact same. Whatever you see, it's the exact same thing. And so those are pretty easy. So, focus in on that. If you can get the perpendicular, then that's great. But if you can't, then I don't want you to stress over it. Just focus in on parallel and at least get all the parallel questions right. All right. All right, so they're giving me a pair of lines and we want to know if they're parallel, perpendicular, or neither. And so remember, we always look in front of X. And so we've got 1/4 and -4. So it's definitely not parallel. I know that for a fact because they're not the same. Perpendicular. The signs are different, so that's good. Did they flip the fraction? Well, if I take 1/4 and I flip it, it becomes 4/1. Now they didn't put the 1 there, but that is, they did flip it. And so this right here would be perpendicular. Okay, so we got 2 and -2. Well, it's definitely not parallel because they're not the exact same. Are they perpendicular? Well, the signs are different, so That's good. That's one thing. Did they flip the fraction? No, they're using the exact same number, so they didn't flip anything. So this would be neither. So I'm only going to do this one right here. We're not going to do number 9. As of right now, you cannot tell me the slope of this line. So I get a lot of kids that are like, oh, the slope is 3. No. So I want to make sure you understand this. We know that slope always goes in front of x, but that's when y is by itself. And if you remember, we've talked about that we can't really do anything with an equation where y is not by itself. And so we always come out here and get y by itself. And then once y is by itself, we can actually do something. And so our first rule is we always subtract the x. So we're going to minus 3x and minus 3x. That cancels. We bring down our y equals. I guess I could have drawn a line right there. We never, ever, ever combine these because this has an x and that doesn't. So this is negative 3x. That's terrible. 3x. And then positive 5, so plus 5. All right, y is by itself. So now this is my slope of negative 3, and this is my slope of 1/3. Okay, I want to take a look at those. They're definitely not the same, and the signs are the same, and they're supposed to be different. So nope, this is not it. So this is neither. And then I'm not going to worry about this one right here, but we definitely don't know the slope because it's, y is not by itself. They're not even a y in this problem. So we're not going to worry about doing this. All right. Okay, on this one, on these two right here, y is not by itself. So once again, I'm just not going to worry about this today. Let's take care of the one where y is by itself. And so what's the slope? The slope is the number next to x. You got to know that. That's one of the key things in Algebra 1 is slope is located in front of x when y is by itself. So the slope is 3. So what's the parallel slope? This is the one I expect you to know. It's the same. So it's 3. This is the one that's a little bit tougher. If you can get it, that's awesome, but it's definitely a little bit tougher. So first off, the signs have to change. So because it's called opposite reciprocal, so the sign has to change. So if this is positive, my new one's negative. And then reciprocal means we're going to flip our fraction. And so if this is 3, it's technically 3 over 1. If I flip it, it becomes 1 over 3. So that would be my perpendicular slope. All right, I think that is it for parallel and perpendicular. So this is the part that a lot of us struggled with. We took a quiz on Friday, and a lot of us struggled with. So when we get done with this today, if you understand it a little bit better, you can always go back and retake that quiz. Just send me an email saying that you retook it so that I know to look for your new grade. But when we take a look at this, first off, we'll start with this graph right here. I know I don't have these numbered, but we'll start with this graph. And so when we take a look at this, you can do a couple of things here. We've talked about anytime that there's y equals, we can plug this into the calculator or in the Desmos in this case. If there's a graph or if there's points or a table, something that we can check, then we can plug y equals into the Desmos in this case. However, before we do that, we want to eliminate some stuff if we can. Now, if you can't eliminate anything, you just start typing each of these in until you find the one that matches this picture, okay? If you can eliminate some stuff, makes your life so much easier. So one of the first things that I always like to eliminate is I tell kids, anytime you're looking at a graph, the one thing I do expect, this is to me is easy, is you to be able to tell me if this is a positive or a negative slope. If you don't know, then you always draw a slope, dude, at the left and tell me, is he skateboarding downhill or uphill? Downhill is gnarly negative. It's awesome. He loves it. And so this is going downhill, and that's negative. Okay. Or maybe you just know if it's downhill that it's negative. But the big thing is slope dude always starts on the left-hand side. Okay. And so we're going downhill, that's negative. So go down here. Slope is in front of X. I don't know what slope is, but I do know it's supposed to be negative. So there's no way this slope is positive right here, that it can be C. This slope is positive, and it can't be D. Slope has to be negative. So just by knowing that this was positive or negative, we were able to eliminate two answers. And that happens a lot, okay? Then, if you know what this number right here represents, then you've got the answer. And so the number at the end is always the y-intercept. And we think the y-intercept is easy. And so the y-intercept is where this red line crosses the y-axis, and this is the y-axis right here. And that's crossing at a positive 3. Negative 3 is down here, so a positive 3, so it can't be A. Now, I want to show you what I was talking about in terms of the Desmos. And so we're going to come over here and go to Desmos. All right. So I'm going to type in y equals, and I forgot what the slope was because we didn't really look at the slope, did we? Negative 3 over 4. So a minus 3. Remember that a fraction in the Desmos is nothing but division. So 3 over 4. Make sure you arrow out x. And then plus 3. So plus 3. Now, take a look at this. I know that my graph right here is more centered than what this one is, but I want you to notice two things. The two easiest points to always kind of check are the y-intercept and the x-intercept. Touches at 3 and it touches at 4. If this touches the y at 3 and the x at 4, you know this is your answer. And it touches the y at 3 and the x at 4. Yep, this is definitely my answer. And all we're doing is matching it. Okay, so you can see it's going downhill. It's above the center. I mean, there's so many different ways that you could look at it. Now, in the end, if you didn't know how to eliminate anything like we did, then you could have typed all these in until you found the one that matched that picture right there. Okay, so that's an option. Okay, so right here, I see the table and then I look down here and I see the y equals. It's these y equals that make this easy. So now we can go type these into the Desmos because we got a table here. And in the table, we type in the x's and we're checking to see if the y's are correct. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and just clear everything. So this is y equals 1/2 x minus 3. I'm going to reload. So y equals 1/2. So 1 over 2, make sure you arrow out, x plus 3. Okay, now, when we're trying to check a point, we can't do it right here. So we're going to hit our settings and table and go into our table. And so, all right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go type in the 4. The negative 2 is actually probably already there in the negative 8. Since the negative 2 is there, we can always look at that, or we can go ahead and just type 4 and see if we get negative 1. So type 4, do we get negative 1? No. And you can see the negative 2 was already up there. So I think that was supposed to be a positive 4, and that definitely wasn't it. All right, so what's our next one? Oh, shoot. So I typed in something wrong, and this is where it'll get you. I thought I typed in A, but A was minus 3, and I typed in plus 3. So what did I actually type in? I typed in D. So be very careful when you type these in, because that was a mistake. I could have really messed that one up. So if we want really quick, let's just go change it to A. What's the difference between D and A? They just switched this to a minus. So this is the only time, if it's in the same problem, that I wouldn't do a brand new graph. And the way you edit this is come up into here in your table and click on it. And then you can take that out and put a minus, hit enter. And notice it kept the 4, and change this to a -1, the -2 was a -4. Is that my 2, 4, -1, -2, -4? That looks like it. And you can always type in -8 and -14 as well. Totally up to you. Just -8 and -14. And we got -7 and -10. Yep. And so A is definitely going to be our answer here. So we consider this easy. The state of Texas considers this question to be hard, but we consider these questions to be easy because we can type them into our calculator. Now, it can be time consuming because you may have to type in all 4 of these. But in terms of, oh, it's hard, it's not hard. It just takes time. Same on, kind of this one right here. You may have to type all these in till you find the one that matches the graph. But in the end, it's not hard to type those in. It just takes a little bit of time. And I will say the better you are with your calculator or even the Desmos, then the quicker that goes. All right, so what do we see on this one? So first off, I know we see a point. We can check that in the calculator. And I know we have y equals, so we can type it into the calculator. But anytime that they give us slope, I should be able to eliminate something. And so that's what we like about this question. Slope is a +3/2. So when I look at this, A has a -3/2. That's not right. Remember, slope's always in front of X. So these two look fine, but D is not right. All right, so it's got to be one of these two right here. We just eliminated 2. So it's 3/2x minus 14. So new problem, I am going to start a brand new graph. And we got y equals, and just like that, I forgot what the 3/2. So 3, and then remember fraction bar is division. 3/2, 2x, and then minus, man, my memory, 14. So this is why I tell you guys to write the problem down, because otherwise you got to go back and forth like me. All right, so settings, and then convert to table. Okay, I am looking for right here 6. So I'm going to type in 6 and see if it says -5. So 6, and it says -5. And so if there's only 1 point, you only got to check 1 point. Now, if there's 2 points, you have to check both of them. If there's more than 2 points, you only got to check 2. Okay, 2 pretty much guarantees that it's your answer, but it never hurts to check them all. So, all right, so we typed in. Now you got to remember which one you typed in. So we typed in B, so that's the answer. All right, so this one, I have been talking about in my class, Hoy and Vux. So this is the poster that you kind of hear me referencing in class all the time. And it's called Hoy and Vux. And if we connect to anything, especially the zero slope, or if there's just y's, or the undefined slope, or just x's, then it connects to everything in these 3 letters, or everything in these 3 letters. Okay, so when I take a look at this, I see that there is an undefined slope. So immediately, I'm like, wait a second, undefined, that's something special right here. So undefined connects with Vux. Okay, now what does Vux mean? It does mean it's an x equals equation, but it means absolutely everything x. So x equals equation. It's an x coordinate. It crosses the x-axis. There are no y's involved in this at all. So if you see a y, we're going to mark it off. Okay. The same would reverse if it was a Hoy. It only contains y's, no x's. Okay, so it's everything y. So when we look at this, this is Vux. And so the x in Vux means it's everything x. It's not allowed to have a y. Well, A has a y. B has a y. C doesn't, but D has a y. The only one that only includes x's would be C. And then I do want to take a second to show you that it's also the x coordinate. And so it's everything x. These questions can be extremely easy if you know Hoy and Vux. So we want to make sure that we're really going over Hoy and Vux a lot. All right, and then hopefully you can start looking at that that picture more. All right, so what do we see here? Well, first off, I see 2 points. I look at my answers. I see y equals. Y equals means we can go to the calculator. So we're going to go to the calculator. So we're typing this in, and then we'll check -4 and -5. So 2x plus 6. So we're going to reset this. See if I can remember 2x plus 6. Y equals 2x plus 6. All right, we need the table. And then we're typing in, I think it was -4 and -5. So -4 was -2, -5 was 4. Oh, that's close right there. This is +2 and +4, and we got -2 and -4. Now, if you don't know the secret to this, then you're going to go and type in B, okay? But we have a little secret. Anytime you get the correct number, but the wrong sign, so we got 2, but it was -2, then we're going to change both of our signs. So we're going to change the +2 to a -2 and the +6 to a -6, and that would be D right here. So I'm going to jump down and type in D by changing both of these to minus. So we go here up at the top, and we're going to change that to a -6, and then put a -2. And notice right here, -4 is +2, -5 is +4, and that was what we wanted. And so, and remember, you do have to match both points. On the last quiz, I tried to trick some kids because one of the points worked and they picked it as the answer, but the second one didn't. And so if there's 2 points, you got to check both of them. Okay, here, notice there's no points, there's no graphs or anything like that. So what did they give us? Well, they gave us the y-intercept and they gave us the slope. Now, the slope here is what's most important to me. Okay, they're trying to trick you here by putting the y-intercept first, hoping that you'll do that right there and say the answer is C, which it's not. Okay, so we want to focus in on the slope. Slope is the one we talk about the most. Now, if once we focus in on slope, we don't have an answer, then we can look at y-intercept, but always focus slope first. So when we look at this, we do have y equals, but there's, like I said, no points, no graph. So we're just going to look and see if we can eliminate based off what we have. So it says slope is 2. Well, A has the slope of 2, but B doesn't. It has 3. C doesn't. It has -3. And D has -2. So the only one that had a slope of 2 was A. And then you can see that the y-intercept was -3. But we always focus in on the slope first to eliminate, and then we can eliminate the y-intercept. That's pretty easy right there. So this comes back to y equals mx plus b, and knowing that m is slope and b is y-intercept, and we consider this to be easy. And we do have posters that I will post on test day especially. And, you want to make sure that you really know this right here. All right. Oh, what did I do? Sure hope I remember to cut all this stuff out. I really look stupid right now. All right. So all right. So this right here is actually an old problem. And so what do we see here that we like? This was unit 2. We see this right here. Remember, 2 letters back to back make that a y. This is y equals. And anytime we have y equals, we're going to go type this into the calculator. I'm going to write this down because there's no way I'm going to remember this. And then what number are we testing? We got a random 2 right here. So we're going to test that random 2. So the rule is, you see y equals, we go type it into the calculator. Then you're either looking for a word or a number that tells you what to do. And we see a number, so you just type that number. All right, so we're going to our Desmos. Remember, we always new problem, refresh it. All right, so we got y equals minus 4x squared would be, you got to hit this keypad thing, and squared is that a squared. And then plus x minus 3. All right, so we are looking to type in a number. So we've got to turn this to a table. And then we want to type in 2. Well, 2's right there. Now you can go ahead and type it in again. You're going to get negative 17. It looks like our answer is negative 17. Is that an option? Yep. Right there. Well, that problem was nice and easy. We love those. Okay. Okay, we're looking at this one. All right, now it's been a while since we've seen one of these. So what do you see here? Well, I see an equation and there's only x's. Notice there's no y's in this at all, okay? So even if it wasn't x's, even if this was m's or n's or r's, anytime that there's one letter, this is just a basic equation. So where do we do basic equations? I'm gonna go ahead and write this down. So we can do this in the calculator. Now, in our calculator at school, we have to go to a special place. So I'm hoping you get your calculators pretty quickly so that you can be practicing this. But here we can just put this in the Desmos. And so we're going to go reload it. Now, I do want you to remember that we do not get the Desmos on the STAR test. That's why it's so important for us to get our calculator. So minus 2x minus 14, because we need to start learning where there's a specific place you would type this. So, but on the Desmos, we just type it in, and it's wherever it touches the x-axis would be the solution. Remember, this is called the solution, the 0 and the x-intercept. So that's a solution, and the solution would be negative 2. So, and you can see negative 2 right there would be an answer. So we don't want to forget that anytime it's a basic equation, we can put it in the calculator or the Desmos. All right. Okay, so on this one, we're looking for slope. And so what's the first thing we do on slope? Notice there's no y equals equations down here. So anytime they're talking about slope, we always say whether it's positive or negative. So I got a lot of kids that are terrible at slope, but you can at least tell me if it's positive or negative. And so here's slope dude, and he's skateboarding downhill, and that's gnarly, gnarly negative. And so if it's negative, we can eliminate all the positives. First thing we always do. If you can determine that this is a negative slope, then you can always go eliminate usually 2 of the positives. Okay, so sometimes they could, give you 3 negatives, but almost always you see 2 positives, 2 negatives, so you're eliminating. So now, even though if you don't know slope, you got a 50-50 shot of getting that right. So how do we find slope? Well, that's rise over run. So we got to find some perfect points where it crosses perfectly. Well, it crosses perfectly right there. Nope, not right there. Not right there, but it does right here. A lot of people like to look at the x and y intercepts to see if they cross perfectly. All right, so it doesn't matter which point you start with, put your pencil on a point, and you have to go either up or down. If I'm on this point, I'm going down. If I'm on this point, I'm going up. And then we're trying to get to the other point by making an L. So I'm gonna go down 1, 2, so 2's on top, and then over 1, 2, 3. Which of these has 2 over 3? And it's C. So I don't consider slope to be easy, but I do consider positive or negative to be easy. So you should at least be able to eliminate half of these and then go choose your answer. All right. So this right here, I want you to notice this. This right here. Now in class, I have a lot of posters hanging up. Unfortunately, you got to know where to go in Canvas to find my posters, but I do got them on Canvas. This says rate of change. Okay. Slope and rate of change mean the same thing. And I have this on a bunch of posters in my class. So slope and rate of change mean the same thing. So if you ever see the word rate or you see rate of change, then you know that all they want is slope here. And so All right, we need to find the slope. So I'm going to clear this out. How do we find slope? Oh, they're giving me 2 points here. How do I find slope with 2 points? Well, we focus in on the y's, and we put it in a fraction where we subtract the y's on top. So we're going to go -1 minus 2, always minus. Okay, always minus. Never put a plus on. Then on the bottom, we're going to subtract the x's. So which x do I start with? We start with -1's buddy, which is 5. So we're going to go 5 minus 1. All right, so now we're going to just go put this in our calculator. The bad news to this is we need the scientific Desmos. So we're going to type in Desmos. And you can do calculator or you can do scientific. And we want the scientific calculator because we need our answer to be a fraction. And so we want to use the scientific calculator. And right here, you can see this AB button allows you to type in a fraction. So let's go type this in. -1 minus 2 over 5 minus 1. Hit enter. It gives me a decimal, but we want the fraction. And so right here, it says convert to a fraction. And my answer is -3 over 4. So -3 over 4. I do not consider this to be easy. So if you're good at this, that's awesome. Because I just don't consider that to be too many places you can make a mistake. All right. I'm going to keep scrolling down, but before I do, what do I see here? Rate of change. Rate of change is slope. So all they're asking me to do to find slope. So what's the difference? Well, usually with slope, they go by 1. So if you remember this question over here, these were going by 1s. If you look here, they're not going by 1s. And so usually rate of change, that's the biggest difference, is they won't go by 1s right here. Okay, so I'm going to find slope. And I know there's another question here, but we're just going to go ahead and do this one. I saw it first. So we've got to go find 2 points. So I noticed it crosses right at the y-axis. Then we go along and it crosses right here. Okay, now a lot of kids will go up 1 over 2, but I want you to take a good look at this. It's not going by 1s. What's it going by? 100, 200, 300. This is going by 100. So I didn't go up 1. I went up 100. Now, how many am I going to go over? Well, it's not 2. What's this going by? It's going by 10. So it's 10, 20. Now we can type this into the calculator and see how it reduces. And so we'll go to the scientific calculator and we'll hit the fraction button again. And we'll go 100 over 20. Hit enter and we get 5. Okay, well that's nice. That came out to a whole number. So the answer here is going to be 5. Remember, if it's not multiple choice, that they'll have those boxes you can fill in. And the first box is for the positive or the negative. So you would put the 5 in the second box. All right, so this is our last question right here. And we're looking for keywords here. It's not multiple choice, so there's nothing multiple choice I can do, but I see the word rate. Rate is rate of change. And rate of change is slope. They want us to do the slope here. So how do we do slope? We take the first 2 y's and we're going to subtract them on top. So we're going to go 33 minus 99 over, and then 33's buddy is 20 minus 99's buddy is 60. Once again, we got to plug this in the scientific Desmos. So we can do a fraction. So we go 33 minus 99 over 20 minus 60. Hit enter. Get some 1.65, 33 over 20. 33 over 20. It's kind of funny being that it's 33 over 20 there. 33 over 20. And that's my answer. So a lot of good stuff here. A lot of stuff that's going to be on our test this week. Also, if you did bad on Friday's test or quiz, and you now know how to plug y equals in and go check points, then you might want to retake it. If not, then tomorrow we'll continue to work on it. And hopefully by tomorrow, you'll know what you're doing and you can retake it then. All right. I hope y'all have a great day.